What you can't hear in this podcast is the look of derision that I'm currently giving Chew Dada.
Well, see, I gotta actually do work with it though. I'm gonna actually be editing videos for the company and things like that. So it's not just a freebie handout, though I plan on taking full advantage of all of it.
Are you saying I don't do work on my computer?
Not for your job.
Is this not one of my jobs?
This is your passion hobby.
Fine.
It's your bromance with me. Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of the Whiskey Podcast. I'm Chew Dada.
I'm Nate Fu.
And we are finally legal.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Here's to 21 as I bang into my mic.
Yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we don't have to pay for the podcast to go to college. Unfortunately.
We may be using the podcast to pay for other people to go to college.
Right.
That's
so this isn't a desperate plea to share with your friends, but please share with your friends.
Now, if you like booze and random ramblings from two dads just living life right now.
Two jaded old men.
Yeah. Well, some older than others. Get off my lawn.
Yeah, all right, Grandpa. So, where are we today?
We're back in the backyard because weather in California permitting says that, it's going to be 65 and nice and temperate.
And, we spent the morning in the snow, actually.
Yeah, that was actually quite fun.
Again, lots of California fun, rubbing it into everyone else.
After we're done with the podcast, we're going to go spend time on the beach. So we'll just round out the trifecta.
Almost not joking. Almost.
It's tempting.
But no, the mistresses found out that Los Angeles National Park had Angeles National Park.
Mm-hmm.
Wrightwood had a snow, so we took all the kids there. Hour there, hour back, and an hour while there.
Mm-hmm. Hour-ish.
Yeah. And then throw into the mix daylight savings time, and no one knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah, we're all kind of operating in a big misty fog. But yeah, last
kind
week,
of just general though.
Yeah, last week we were in the office because a massive cold and wet front moved through California, and we actually experienced winter for a few hours.
We had hail, we had thunder. Yeah. I had to explain to my mother-in-law that no, that wasn't someone rolling garbage cans down the street. That was in fact thunder. To which your oldest informed us that, that means that the particles were moving super fast and banging
running
into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. These kid shows are starting to become dangerous.
Well, it's funny. When I was really, really young, I've lived all over the country, and part of my stays were in the Midwest, which I always thought was weird because it's closer to the East. But yeah, in the Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky areas, where, weather actually happens on a fairly consistent basis. And for the longest time as a kid growing up, man, thunder and lightning just scared the bejesus out of me. Because if you had, especially, in Kentucky, Ohio, if you had thunder and lightning, you had floods, you had tornado warnings, you had it was a risky proposition. So yeah, I had an unhealthy fear for weather for a long time.
See, I grew up in Florida, and thunder and lightning was how I went to sleep, because that's all you got. Now, I went to college in Pittsburgh, and this cold, wet stuff that was kind of like rain, but not quite, and made me follow my ass quite a bit. That wasn't as much fun, but I came to the desert on a horse with no name.
Yeah, the point I was getting at, somewhere in my journeys in California, I started to gain, I kind of missed having weather. So when we started having thunder and lightning storms, it always fascinated me. And I used to live up in the hills here off the end of the valley.
Are they alive?
Yes, with the sound of music.
Yeah.
And we had one particular storm pass over, and here I am just freaking out and crawling in at that point my foster mother's bed because I was freaked out. And as I was grabbing my stuff, grabbing my stuffed animal and doing all that, lightning actually struck the pool in the backyard, about as close as the pool is here.
Mm-hmm.
So it was immediately lit up the entire room, lit up the entire house, immediate rumble. And for whatever reason, that moment didn't terrify me, but it fascinated me. So every thunderstorm since then, if I can, you'll find me sitting out on the porch. At that point, I used to grab my mom and we'd fire up a pot of coffee and we'd go sit on the balcony and just watch these storms roll through. So.
See, I've actually been struck by lightning. And
that explains a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, poor life choices.
Well, again, you grew up in Florida where, you were the tallest thing around during a thunderstorm.
It's true.
So,
I mean, we also had hurricane parties where during the eye, we would tie someone who was drunk enough to a rope to go out front to see if it had gone away.
But one of the things with my oldest, Brooke, I want to say it was sometime last year, maybe, towards the end of the year, we had a pretty good storm cell move through and we got some pretty consistent thunder and lightning. So I made it a point to, take her out and show her that it wasn't dangerous or scary.
Mm-hmm.
And all that effort seemed to have paid off because this time around it was like, ooh, thunder, it's particles crashing together. So there's no fear in that child.
Well, there's no fear in your child, period.
Well,
I mean,
here's what's funny. It comes and it goes. Like there's sometimes that nothing scares this girl. And then we'll be watching, we were watching The Rookie, right? And it wasn't even a particularly violent or gruesome scene. And she was just like, Daddy, turn this off. I'm done. This scares me.
Well, she was also, terrified of the stormtroopers when we went to Disneyland.
Right. So it's like...
Which is funny because stormtroopers are her favorite thing. But, when they actually, walk up to you and talk to you and you're 2.
It's fascinating the mind of children, what does and doesn't set them off.
Speaking of setting off kids, what are we drinking today?
We are drinking a Glen Fohdry, if I'm pronouncing that right. I probably butchered the crap out of it because I don't speak Gaelic. In fact, I don't think anyone really speaks Gaelic. They just...
I appreciate it.
Threw a bunch of letters in soup and said, that's,
That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work. So it is a Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey. And it is based on the back of the container. It is an aroma is fresh and fruity with a touch of vanilla oakiness and a delicate floral character. The flavor is a beautiful balance of sweet oak and crisp fruit. The vanilla sweetness increases with addition of a little water. The finish is crisp with a lasting sweetness.
Yeah, we tried this the other night, and that really holds true. Most Speysides tend to be very peat forward. So we, obviously we grabbed a couple ice cubes, threw it in, and took a sip immediately, and man, it did smack you in the face.
Oh, yeah.
But once that cube melted, it just mellows out. This is actually...
it's a double cask.
Yeah, I'm very fond of this one, and the thing I like about this that I find very special is that it is finished in French wine casks.
So this is actually from a list that I think my wife shared a couple months ago of...
For science, right?
For science, entirely. Of the 10 most underrated Scotch or whiskeys as chosen by individual experts, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of these things range in price from $400, $500, $600 a bottle to, $30 a bottle.
What was the spend on this one? Do you know?
This spend, I think, was around 45 or 55.
That's exceptionally reasonable.
Yeah. And it's a great find. Definitely something I want to keep on the shelf. And it's a great sipping.
Very much so. And it pairs well with this, old hand roll, house roll cigar, which are very quickly becoming my go-tos.
Yes.
So
if you can find a local today.
Yeah, if you can find a local shop that does a hand roll, it's a good way of having a good stick on the cheap.
And, make sure you understand what the local terminology is. So if you ask someone for a local hand roll, it doesn't come off with the wrong innuendo. Doing our part to keep the community safe.
Supporting small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Or large. I mean, whatever the hand roll does for you.
Hand roll, not hand job.
It's each their own.
Speaking of
hand jobs?
Speaking of hand jobs, yeah, this is a reach. We're going through the whole, trailing out towards the end of what has been now a year-long pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've received my first, as my friends over the pond say, got my first jab.
Congrats.
Right. I get my second jab in a week.
Nice.
You now have gotten
I've
your
gotten one
first jab.
My last jab will be very end of the month. So
the 27th, correct?
Something like that.
Hey, happy birthday to my little girl.
Yeah, well.
But as such, we're feeling more and more brave, willing to
go out and explore,
to go out
reality and life again,
to actually do things that are beneficial. And my wife has actually scheduled me a well-needed massage. Because
I'm kind of jealous. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, you've already been to the chiropractor how many times now?
Yeah, well, that's because I couldn't, sit up straight.
I'm long overdue for that. So this was the break I needed to kind of get some of the stress out. Because I carry it in the neck and shoulders. Don't breathe the whiskey.
I have a drinking problem. It just burns the lungs.
So yeah, she scheduled me a long overdue massage. So I'll let you know how that goes, because apparently it's a new girl, because our original masseuse is with child.
Oh, mazel tov.
Mazel tov to her. So I'm looking forward to that. Just, getting some of these knots worked out.
Yeah, everything's been doing that now. So speaking of working things out, my daughter, who is now mobile, has recently decided that she likes pulling on cables and pushing buttons and things like that. So was it last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
We spent all of Sunday rerunning all the cables in the office.
Sleeving them up, zip tying everything.
Into, and, so they couldn't be reached. And, my daughter looks around at it and immediately bypasses the computers and goes immediately for the backup battery and just turns that off. So middle of a meeting, Monday morning with my boss, all of a sudden, beep, 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 and computer's dead. And you just keep hearing that. And I look under my desk and she's just sitting there, crawled in without anyone noticing, just pushing the button and having a grand old time with it.
And so begins the long lifetime of her pushing your buttons.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, she's been doing that since before she was born.
Yeah, I mean, to say the effort was for naught would be an understatement, but
it looks a lot cleaner now.
Yeah.
And
we'll have to get I don't know, some sort of
cover for the power buttons.
Power buttons.
Yeah, especially when the new rig shows up. So.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm getting a new gamer/production rig.
Which, what was it? Episode 16 or 17 when I had purchased mine and it started to arrive, and you gave me this loving glare of jealousy and a very derisive "fuck you." Mm-hmm. Tell us a little about the gaming rig that you're getting.
So it's actually my boss, as a advance on a bonus, realizing that I have now blue screened on Zoom calls with him 4 times in the last 2 months. So you know what? We're getting you a new rig.
Sure. I mean, that's reasonable, right? Yeah.
But my boss is also a gamer. Mm-hmm. And after spending, from what I'm told, almost 20 hours looking around for the pieces to build it, he eventually just went with CyberPower to have it, because we just couldn't find the pieces for cheap.
Yeah, that's why I went with them as well. I mean, nothing wrong against CyberPower. I only had one.
I like building it. That's all.
I had one complaint about my experience with them, but that was more of a semantic issue. I ordered a full PC with a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and the monitor was back ordered. So I essentially got a PC with no monitor, and the monitor took a week to arrive. But, as with anything, they offer a nominal grace period of if you have any issues, you can send it back, sight unseen, whatever, warranty. But they wouldn't grant an extension on it until the actual monitor showed up. So
Right.
I lose 7 days off of that. It's ticky tack. I don't know. I don't know if I'm being trite about it, but it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that it's like, hey, you just dropped $3,000 with us. Grant me 7 days or 6 days on something that wasn't my issue.
$3,000, huh?
Yeah.
That is literally what a 3090 is going for on scalper prices right now.
Interesting. And what does your new computer have in it?
A 3090.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't scalped.
Yeah.
So my new computer is an AMD Ryzen 5700X with 64 gigs of memory. Samsung Evo 970 SSD, 1 terabyte, and
that's the M2 one, like mine, right? Yeah.
And the 3090 video card.
What you can't hear in this podcast is the look of derision that I'm currently giving to Dad app.
But see, I gotta actually do work with it though. I'm gonna actually be editing videos for the company and things like that. So it's not just a freebie handout, though I plan on taking full advantage of all of it.
Are you saying I don't do work on my computer?
Not for your job.
Is this not one of my jobs?
This is your passion hobby.
Fine.
It's your bromance with me.
The wife chimed in here. My children sound brilliant and beautiful. I must have married well. I could have done worse. Are you looking
must have married well.
Yeah.
I don't know which one she's talking to, but I'm going to assume both, since, I will point out, though, that since my daughter has spent her entire life in quarantine, there's only 3 men she knows in the entire world. And that's my brother, you, and I. And so when she happens to see another guy, she's completely baffled. So it's going to be very interesting. Speaking of seeing other people.
Yeah.
So
we had another nice little gift, I would say.
Where are you going?
Where the kids are going to be going.
Oh, yes. That's where I was going with it, too. So, state of California and the individual districts have more or less been given the carrot, we'll say, that if they return to teaching full-time in person by April 1st, I think it is.
There's a significant cash influx into the district.
Right. And for every day delayed in that happening, there's like a 1% reduction in that cash infusion.
Yep.
So where a lot of people were saying, we're not going to, go back to the end of the, till next year. It's stupid at this point, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly you dangle a carrot of tens of millions of dollars in front of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally let me make you an offer you can't refuse.
Exactly. And since a lot of districts have been operating in the red the last couple of years,
cash-strapped, and especially this year with
all
the technology, the technology upgrades that were required for doing this remote learning, it's a very welcome thing. I have mixed opinions on it. Like I almost feel like teachers were politically strong-armed into returning into an environment that is still
100%
unknown.
The problem with it, though, and this is something I went back and forth with my wife on, is I personally think this is an awful idea. It's stupid, waste of time and energy. That being said, though, when the union and the district met and agreed on what would be necessary for a full return, those terms have been met. And, while the situation has changed, the contract was not updated to identify that. So regardless, it's kind of a situation of here we are, here's the situation, here's...
Yeah, the rubber has literally met the road.
Right.
And a decision was made and...
Well, so it's not been made fully yet. As we're speaking right now, negotiations are still in place to work out details and finalize it. But more likely than not... Our wives are going back to work.
Yeah,
which means
in the classroom. Kids not to say they haven't been working this entire time.
They've been doing the remote work, but they have to go back to in-person teaching.
Right.
And by this point, everyone, or by the time they start, and this is part of the sticking point, is everyone should have had more or less their vaccines, teacher-wise and faculty-wise, by then. The problem is that not all of them will have had the full quarantine period afterwards.
Correct.
For it to take full effect. So that's one issue with it. The second issue is that in order to maintain CDC guidelines, they have to completely one-up a standard schedule anyway, because you can't physically fit everyone into the rooms
Right.
the way it was before. So groups are going to be, split. And how does that work?
Right. Well, and that was one of the, from what I'm told, one of the sticking points with this influx of cash was it was designed to, I guess one of the caveats on the teacher side was this requires the classrooms to stay under a certain level. They were set to increase classroom sizes, which in a pandemic where spacing and social distancing is paramount.
Yep.
This helps maintain classroom sizes small enough where that's actually possible.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of this, though, not only are they back in person teaching and supporting kids there's still a huge amount of people, student-wise, that are going to just stay remote for the rest of the year. So it's a whole lot of complications and coordination.
Yes.
And, basically threat of, sickness and whatever that is just going to have to be juggled through.
Yep.
And none of that takes into consideration, what happens if a teacher calls in sick? A sub's going to come in. Is that sub, going to quarantine going between groups? What happens if someone in the household is not fully vaccinated?
Right.
Like our kids, and the teacher or whomever comes home and brings it there.
Right.
So
and we all know, especially in my wife's age range, that kids are little germ spreaders. They're not, maybe I have hope that this year of having to work with the new paradigm of, having to social distance, having to mask, having to do all that, they carry that into the classroom and actually take it seriously and not just go, dick nose in the classroom or, when they're not in the classroom.
Kids that I worry about.
Well,
I'm worried about the parents who, don't want to deal with their kids home or can't deal with their kids home, that, give their kids Tylenol when they have a fever and send them into school no matter what. And, that's the norm for so many people. And that's part of the reason people get sick so often is...
Well, on that note, and this is something I just had a conversation with my supervisor. We were talking about, just the course of this year. We have not had a single work hour lost to the flu this year. So imagine that. Masking has been working and had a secondary side effect of the flu didn't basically happen this year.
It happened minimally.
So, and there are numbers that vet that out with how many deaths to flu. You always heard that thrown out where, the flu kills blah, 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 X amount of number per year, So how is this any different than COVID? Well, guess what? We've all been wearing masks for a year and the flu deaths are minuscule compared to previous years. So.
But it's all a giant conspiracy. I mean,
of course,
all we've done is inject Bill Gates' Overwatch into our system.
Oh, yeah, so. I feel it. It beeps every now and then.
You've got a sudden urge to play on the Xbox and use Microsoft Office.
Hey, I'm a Game Passer now.
It's a different kind of susceptibility.
But, so one of the, I guess the secondary, the knockoff effects, or knock-on effects, I forget is it knock-on? Is our children are going to require going back into a daycare while the wives are working. And thankfully, we have a very unique situation where we don't have, effectively a puppy mill style daycare system. We have our, for lack of a better term, babysitter.
Yeah, our early childhood person is actually an independent instructor, caregiver, whatever.
And she limits her clientele to teachers and has a very short list. Like, you have to get on a waiting list to get in with her.
Don't even know if we'll be able to send ours.
Right.
Like, that's how small it is. So, like, we're actually looking at, okay, who else is around that could potentially help watch the child? And since I work remote, I'm going to end up being most likely the bus driver.
Right.
And taking everyone around and, trying desperately to get home in time to jump at a call.
All good times.
Oh, yeah.
But, our kids going back into this daycare system will actually give them a level of socialization they haven't had in just over a year.
But it's super difficult, like, because there's no vaccine or effective treatment or even true knowledge of the impacts and
Right.
spreadability for kids, much less toddlers
Right.
or, teenagers or whomever it is.
Yeah, there's a
Like,
lot of, for
the
lack of a better
PPE
term,
requirements.
yeah, a lot of faith metrics going into this too, that the parents, which thankfully are also, because of the nature of this daycare, are fellow instructors. So everyone's kind of aligned in the same mentality. You don't get a lot of anti-vaxxer hoax, right? Teachers typically, especially in California,
They're educated?
Educators
are educated?
Yeah, they're educated, and educators in California tend to lean on the liberal side. So they have been following that train of thought, throughout this the whole pandemic. So I have some faith in that my wife's coworkers have also been practicing and maintaining social distance and not doing dumb stuff like, holding backyard barbecues for 50, 60 people for the Super Bowl and, shit like that. So,
but it's not even just that. Like, the caregiver, the teacher cannot interact with a child without changing PPE. So every individual child she directly interacts with, she has to stop, change gown, change mask, change face mask, change gloves,
right,
and switch to a different kid. And once the kid is
that's
old
a
enough to
logistical
walk,
nightmare.
Yeah, this is going to be ridiculous. Of any kind of childcare, and there are some childcares right now that are doing it, but again, they're the puppy mills. Okay, all of you go into that room, and someone's watching you through a glass pane, and
right,
just don't kill each other.
Yeah, and I think this is a first. You actually finished your first round before I did.
Yeah, well, I'm not smoking.
I do this all the time. We can go back and look at the footage. I tend to double up on you. So
please don't. I really don't. I really, really don't want to spend half the episode of you going back and looking at the past episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's troubling. It weighs on my conscience. I'm sending my child out into a world where I just don't know. But
I mean, this sort of conversation goes all the way back to like our third or fourth episode. And you were talking about whether to go back to work or not and what that would mean for the kids and what's going on there. And I think talking parents to parents now, that this is one of the hard parts because you know what? You're never going to be able to knowingly make the quote unquote right answer. You're only going to be able to make the best answer you possibly can. I think part of maturity and age and quote unquote making the right decision is doing the best you can with the information you have available in this situation. And everyone's situation is going to be different. We are lucky in the fact that we've got an extended family network and friend network that if something were to happen, period, we could get support. But a lot of other people aren't as, luxurious.
I mean, we weathered that not too long ago when we had that, right at the beginning of this year, when we had an outbreak at my job that unfortunately took the life of one of my coworkers. But I literally walked into a grease fire and flipped everything on its head, and we had to very quickly adjust. And because my exposure, I was a single point of contact. Everyone came here, and I quarantined at home alone, which, while nice.
Yeah, it didn't seem as rough as we made it out to be for you.
But yeah, it wasn't rough, but there was that fear of imminent death.
Right.
So yeah, the quiet was nice, but here I am going, well, fuck, I am staring at my phone waiting for that text message to come through of you're clear.
Right.
So thankfully that all worked out. But yeah, I mean, we were able to enact that. Imagine if I didn't have you guys local like this, that you didn't have the space that we could, sure, it wasn't elegant. We blew up an air mattress in the living room.
But it worked.
But it worked. A lot of people don't have that. So if, a standard household had this kind of incident, and heaven forbid, I did contract COVID. Now I come home to a family that can't go anywhere. What am I supposed to do? Rent a motel room? sleep in my car.
Yeah, I know some
Right?
people that have literally like blocked off half their house.
Yeah, and I mean, I
because of
would
it.
have, like in my case, I would, had that been the circumstance, I would have rented a motel room and stayed there for 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
to not come home and risk infecting my family
Mm-hmm.
and by proxy your family. So, yeah, it's been an ugly year.
Yeah, well, longer than a year at this point, but we're finally starting to see some of the upside.
Yeah.
At least for my birthday, I'm getting a stimulus check. So,
Did yours actually come through? Is that what I saw?
It's scheduled to come through on Wednesday.
Nice.
So
I wonder if ours probably in line with the same.
Yours is the same situation, apparently. Of we can't find your stuff.
Yay!
And that clicking noise you guys hear is,
if you can hear it,
the middle one working her way to try and figure out how to unlock the sliding glass door and escape out here to us.
Do you ever have if you've ever been on an airplane
Mm-hmm.
and see, I'm showing my age here, and you've got that nervous flyer that before the airplane even takes off is just sitting here thumbing back and forth the ashtray in the armrest. That's what our daughter is doing with.
I'm just waiting for it to open, and
thankfully the door is heavy.
Here's Johnny.
Oh, that face.
Mm-hmm. But hey, we actually got pictures of her smiling this morning in the snow.
Right.
She's normally got that, cute pout going on. But we got her actually smiling and enjoying herself.
We really are fortunate to have some pretty remarkable daughters. Yeah. And I mean, at top to bottom.
They scare me.
Right? I got here and your daughter just will not take her eyes off me. And I walked around the back of the car to unload all my gear from the trunk, and she kept peeking out. So I moved a little further away and she crawled over and peeked out. And I moved a little farther and she crawled out further and peeked out. And it was just, makes me want to have a third one. And I'm not doing that. So
I don't know. Sarah and I were talking about renewing our vows. So.
Sweet.
That's close enough to a wedding.
No.
And I think we're going to do it 2 weeks before your scheduled snip this summer. So
that can't come soon enough.
Well, we're still looking. I think we'll probably go for number 2 starting end of the year.
Nice.
Because we want about 2.5 years between our kids. And hopefully that has us in a better position financially, globally.
Right.
Etc. And we could kind of figure out what's going on from there.
So yeah, that's been pandemic life, and that's where we're at now. Scares the shit out of me. I mean, if I'm being honest, between me, you, and the fence posts here, our wives have craved getting back in that classroom because they truly do care.
They love interacting with the kids and giving them the best support they can have.
They care for those kids, and it's not they've seen the effects it's had on them as well. So getting them back in face to face is it's something they've been striving for. And it may not be the most ideal, but I think we're at a place where we can have that experiment.
Yeah. The
right?
sad part is that it is an experiment. And it's an experiment that we have to take no matter what.
Right.
And that's where we start getting problematic, I'll say.
Sure.
Right?
In other news, we had previously discussed, career moves and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And in my own personal dive back into the unknown and possibly making career changes, I was set to possibly go and work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, it didn't pan out as expected. And it's
the entire role that they were looking for changed.
It was weird because there was a lot of hand wringing on my part of, change is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the stability I've had of 16 years of, the current career that I've been in, it's a job.
Yeah.
but it's paid the bills and it's afforded me a certain level of living. But I still am willing to try to improve that. And when that opportunity came up, it scares the crap out of me. It's like I'm trading away 16 years for a higher ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I guess a good way of saying it is, it's not a problem until it becomes a problem.
Right.
And I was, it was weighing heavily on me. So when I got that, official rejection email, it was like, okay, at least I have my current job to fall back on. And I don't know. It's a little comforting.
Well, it's, I think we should actually write a counterpoint article on this of risk versus stability.
Right.
And the values and pros and cons of each. Because, for me, this has actually been one of the most stable opportunities I've ever had.
Which is why I was willing to take that take that chance. Like we had previously done
years of
we had previously done the past job, and wow,
But I'm looking at things now. My brother's coming over this afternoon, and I'm working on his resume because his contract's almost over, and he has to start looking for something. My cousin called me earlier today, and he's been more or less unemployed since the pandemic because he was in retail sales for hot tubs, and it's not exactly something that's selling like hotcakes in Colorado right now.
You don't say.
Right? But he's starting his own gig. He already has 3 clients, and he's working on being an MSP.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a lot better than selling social soup in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. And, there's some things that your stability is a fluke in everything that I've ever seen, and the fact that it has been there consistently for so long.
Well, and I will say this wholeheartedly, and again, same thing with the opportunity that I was presented with you guys. There is a certain level of nepotism that is frustrating, but that's kind of where some of that stability comes from.
Right.
The job that I have now is very, very steeped in nepotism. If you don't know someone, you don't get a job there. And as such, you don't get a job unless you know someone there. So you're not constantly looking at, like call center work. The turnover there is outstanding. Ridiculous, right? Retail, same thing. You can literally grab someone off the street and just fill that position. So there is no sense of security there because my job is so steeped in that level of nepotism. I don't have a cadre of people that are banging down the door trying to take my job, and then so the opportunity with you is kind of that same level. Like once you get in. And then you have to prove yourself, obviously.
Right. But, the foot in the door helps.
Right. And the foot in the door is the thing that gets you in. So.
But, again, it's,
And that door is not closed.
Last year, I look at it. Yeah, it's not even just that. I look at last year, and over the last 3-4 years, I would say I've been on unemployment for about 14 months.
Okay.
Which a good chunk of that was COVID.
Sure.
And, so that skews it a bit. But, if a quarter of the time I'm without something and relying on, unemployment and savings, then I need to make sure that other 75% is worthwhile, or I've got multiple, coals in the fire.
Right. And I mean, I guess that's the difference between you and I over these years that we've all, grown up is, while you, on a day-to-day basis, you out-earn me probably almost twofold.
For the moment, yeah.
Yeah, for the moment. And you have prior. I've had the same half wage that you've had for 16 years straight, and I can budget on that, whereas you've had your opportunities and you've made a ton of money. But it's not like you can go out and get a TV because
right. You don't know what's going to be
the nature of your work has always been, well, this could be 3 months, this could be 6 months, this could be 1 year, and then I won't see work for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. So, in the short term, your earnings have been great. When you stretch that out over the course of both of our careers since you and I have known each other, we've probably made the same amount of money.
Right.
So,
Because like during that time, even when I've made the money, I didn't have health insurance. So that's an extra benefit there. I don't
Right.
have a retirement or 401k or anything like that from a company
correct.
with a match. So I'm not getting anything there. Sick days just meant money that wasn't coming in.
Right.
So it's a lot of those things that you figure out. But,
We are literally so both ends of that earning spectrum.
well, and I think that's why it'd be a good counterpoint for us to have at some point, is we are extremes of the spectrum, but there's a lot of people that fall in between, and our own life might be valuable in people trying to navigate their own situations.
Very much so. Yeah, I like it. There's at the moment I envy you. Your company is buying you a $4,000 gaming rig because
$4,500 with tax.
Yeah, fuck you. Oh man, I was king of the crop for a very very brief.
You still are. You got a lot more gadgets and a better setup than I do.
Yeah, well, I've learned. The lighting we have here was something that you had found, and again, we've learned to.
It's cherry but we make it work.
Well, but we've learned to find value in certain things. Sure, the lights that we have set up here could be $100+ a piece, and we managed to, through research and whatnot, find stuff that works within our means, and I appreciate that because guess what? I don't have the income you do, so
right.
I appreciate a good deal.
Whoa! Well, it looks like everyone is waking up.
Sweet.
So, looks like we may need to start winding down.
Yeah, I mean...
Any gaming news we should be talking about?
As I was saying earlier, with the microchip in my arm constantly beeping, I am full in on Microsoft's Game Pass. And one of the things they announced recently was, they announced a while back that they were buying ZeniMax, which by proxy was Bethesda,
yep.
Right? And what would become of that? Well, the first seeds of that just recently showed up with 20 Bethesda exclusive games coming to Game Pass, and
nice,
exciting for me because I re-downloaded the original Doom. It was just playing it because why not? And it's weird going into the settings and seeing a resolution, of 4K, even though the game can't even support it. But yeah, I now have access to Doom 2, Doom 64, right. And Doom Eternal, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Fallout's
Skyrim.
Yeah. Oh well.
Right.
All of I guess the last 2 or 3 Elder Scrolls. So. Yeah, Microsoft's been making big moves, and apparently there's a whole exclusivity thing coming with new releases in the future.
What was it? What was someone saying that there's Arc 2 has announced that they are Microsoft exclusive, so they'll be releasing only on PC and Xbox.
Eat that, PlayStation.
Right.
But
I mean, it's all these sort of games, and PlayStation has been consistent for a while, but Microsoft's got a lot of long-term.
They've really played this generation very well, especially with the PC market, and to that end, everything that Microsoft released from the Bethesda library is also coming to its cloud service.
Nice,
right? So, I could literally fire up my phone right now with the controller and play some Doom on that. It's exciting. Yeah, it's weird to see it took a while, but it's weird to see Microsoft kind of back on top of their game.
Well, and I at work a lot actually, because a lot of my coworkers are still the old school anti Microsoft, and I'm like, no, actually, this current generation of Microsoft is really good.
No, I mean Xbox really hasn't been on top of their game since I want to say the original Xbox.
Right.
360 was an abysmal failure.
I'm not just talking about game. I'm talking about Microsoft in general. Yeah.
They've really gone in on the service side of it. You buy the service, and you reap the benefits of it
Right.
for a subscription. It's a great model. Yeah, and I remember paying $120 for just Word, right? And then $300 for the Office suite. Now I can just for $5.99 a month. I have access to the service and even the free tier of it.
Yeah.
The basic
online only. Yeah.
Yeah, the basic feature set is, I mean,
and it integrates really well. And now that I'm in cybersecurity, the security options and setup are great. So it'll lock down and set things up effectively for you and your business and your gaming or whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and we even saw that in our previous venture together with Azure integration. And the whole Active Directory schema. Like they've really worked that into, we can get you in and you get a robust feature set for free. And when you're ready to cross that bridge into big boy territory, it's not it's not so difficult to do.
Right.
And they'll literally nickel and dime you. That's we
Anyone
can get,
will do that.
yeah, we can get into that argument with everyone's cutting the cable and everyone wants to get away from cable TV. So now they're paying for Hulu. Now they're paying for Netflix. Now they're paying for. At what point? Now we're looking at what I'm paying for Hulu, what I'm paying for Disney Plus, what I'm paying for
Netflix, CBS access,
CBS, Paramount. Right. I'm almost paying as much as I was paying for my traditional cable service to now have the same channels without having cable service.
But a lot more freedom in what you're watching at any given point.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest sell is there are plenty of people, myself included, that I don't watch TV all that much.
Right.
I already pay for Amazon Prime, so I'm going to get the video, bonus there, but I don't necessarily personally care about any of those other services.
Sure.
So I'm not going to spend the money. But, HGTV Plus or whatever it is now was free when we upgraded our internet. Sure. Okay. We'll take it.
Right.
We watch it because we have it. Great.
Yeah, and we just got into the again. I listen to a cadre of podcasts, both political schemes, and the latest one is, I guess, people are trying to petition the cable service providers to drop certain channels of a more conservative nature because politics. What that's unearthed was, when you pay for your traditional cable service,
it
automatically funds
those services.
So the nice thing about doing these individualized, a la carte setups is you can vote with your wallet. And if you don't like certain channels, you don't have to subscribe to services that support those.
Yep.
So,
well, that goes back to more the individual power of the consumer and us as everything, us as parents, us as teachers, that's just those sort of things have more say because we have more control of our platform.
Right.
And there's plenty of people that will cry cancel culture on some of those things, but guess what? That's been the way things have worked for the longest time.
Right.
Now there's just more people capable of having an impact on it.
Yeah, there's a whole Twitter thread, I forget the name of it off the top of my head here, that's designed to target the advertisers that are supporting, oh, hey, did you know your ad was running during this particular person's show? Are you sure that's where you want to align your dollars? Yeah.
But people get the opportunity to say that. The same people that are crying cancel culture now were trying to cancel, anything, someone's taking a knee. Someone,
right.
It's not like this is a new thing. It's just new that it's suddenly being used against other people that,
that it can be.
That it can be used.
Right. There's now the avenues that make that possible. And, with great power comes great responsibility. And, You do you, boo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my money's going into, the microchip compels me.
Yep.
To keep investing in Microsoft products and Microsoft services, and at the end of the day, it's not any conspiracy laden thing. It's Microsoft has put out a compelling product and made it accessible and made it compelling to buy into.
Mm-hmm. And even with their problems, like the massive hack of Exchange servers right now that's going on, like even with that, they are responding faster and more significantly than many of their competitors and counterparts, all the way up to the government level. And it's just, that's the nature of the game at the moment. Since, we're talking about games, we had to end on the term game.
Game.
Game. All right. Shall we wrap it?
We shall wrap it. I need a refill, and I don't want to waste anyone else's time hearing me pour another glass. So
fair enough. So congratulations on being legal, barely.
Right.
And we'll see where this baby takes us.
Where are we at? We're almost at a year.
Yeah, we started last May, and we're probably going to be releasing this end of March.
Nice.
So I'd say with that, from episode 21, I'm Judata.
I am Nate Fu.
Peace out, Holmes. Keep it real.